Greetings. Let's talk. I had the most interesting set of conversations this past week. Now, to be particular about them, they really didn't have a lot in common. One was a heraldry protocol question. One was about, actually was a question about households, and how to go about interacting with a certain household. And another one was about largesse for some landed nobility. Very different questions, very different people asking the questions, and each conversation was an interesting case study in how to approach the subject. But they all had a interesting underlying theme, and that is communicate. Now, what do I mean by that? Certainly, the people who reach out to me were looking for objective outside information. A lot of them, frankly, they did not know enough to know what to ask. And then that's fine. I don't ever want to discourage someone from reaching out to someone else to get an outside opinion on something. But the one thing that each person I talked to had in common was it had never occurred to them to actually reach out and express to the person they were planning around or about what their intentions were, or to ask that person questions. And of course, that was part of my advice in each situation was go talk to the householder, go talk to the nobles, or go talk to in one case it was the particular royal herald. But that really got me thinking. And when you've been playing as long as I have, when you literally have a quarter plus century of time in the SCA, you very quickly realize that so many arguments, fights, some truly uncomfortable disagreements really could have been headed off with better communication. And that's, I really think that's something we all need to take to heart. And that goes from the newest member all the way up to the most seasoned peer. I remember one very particularly kind of ugly fight, and this was from ages ago, where a pair of landed nobles were at feast, and this particular pair of landed nobles were not a couple. They were separate individuals with their own separate lives. And one of them was involved in a dating relationship with another SCA'er, and they wanted that particular SCA'er to join them at head table. Now, ultimately, that after the dust settled, there was a resolution reached. But the problem was, and I'm perfectly okay faulting an individual on this, was the general in question never communicated to the rest of the head table party in advance of the event that they would be bringing an extra person, that he was expecting that person to sit at head table with him, and that that was going to cause some adjustments at head table. And when you are the landed nobles for a group that is hosting the event that weekend, you're already running on empty. You're already tired. You're tired before you show up. I have talked to too many landeds to not know this. You're tired when you show up. You have too much stuff on your plate to begin with, and stuff just keeps piling on. It comes with the territory. It's part of being landed nobility, is you're kind of the go-to person for all the successes and a lot of the failures of things that go on around you. having something as visible, even if it is largely inconsequential, but having something as visible and as in your face as another figure sitting head table unexpectedly sprung on you 15-20 minutes before feast is served, well, that's not a good scenario to be in. It really isn't. And there were some ruffled feathers over that. And all of that, honestly, could have been prevented outright, stopped outright, if the individual in question had simply contacted the other noble or the coordinating herald, their baronial herald, and said, hey, I'm bringing my girlfriend, and I would like for them to sit head table with me. And that could have been a much more calm, thought out conversation. I've seen some seriously hurt feelings at the tournament field, and that's not even counting the fighters. At one point, I was at a tournament. This has personally happened to me. I was at a tournament where we were supposed to herald people. We as heralds were told we were going to be heralding people in a presentation before the landed nobles. And 25-30 minutes before the presentations were supposed to start, we found out that no one had told the event steward that. So it wasn't built into the schedule and there wasn't time, so the decision was made, we're just not going to do the presentations. Well, I remember 9 heralds all getting together going, well, we just came here for nothing. It was disappointing. It was disheartening. I wish I could say this had only happened once. Again, on a heraldry theme, I remember multiple events where I was specifically told they needed list heralds by, the list mistress or list master or the event coordinator or coordinating herald or herald in charge, whatever. And we would show up, and the person running the tournament would, usually 20 minutes before the tournament, would announce, okay, we're going to do a bear pit or a round robin or a king of the hill, which, if you're not familiar with, all of those are formats that don't require heraldry. They don't require announcement, just guys line up. It's kind of like a fighter practice format in some respects. And 3 or 4 of us were like, we just drove an hour and a half for nothing. And if that had been coordinated ahead of time, fewer feelings would have been hurt, frankly. My point here, and there's nothing SCA-centric about this. There's also nothing ahistorical about this. I have read multiple historical accounts where major historical events were shaped dramatically. I mean, there were some wars that could have been prevented, both in the Middle Ages and in the in the Renaissance or even the modern era, where if the parties had just sat down and communicated more clearly, there would not have been the anguish that there was. And the SCA is no different. I would very strongly argue, in fact, that fully half of our internal conflicts, of our hurt feelings, stem from an inability or an unwillingness or a oversight in communication. I didn't think I need to tell them that. I forgot to tell them that. Wait, I was supposed to tell someone this. Take your pick. So the takeaway, and this is by no means for new members only. This is, frankly, I think this video applies more to the senior membership, to the peers, to the grants, to the landed nobles, to the royals. If nothing else, you should strive to over communicate and wait until the person you're communicating with says too much, enough, we've covered this, until you have that confirmation that we have hit the mass of information we're comfortable with. Is that going to solve all our problems? No. Is that going to stop all miscommunications? No. There's nothing I could put in a 5-minute video or a 35-minute video that is going to solve all communication issues. But I really do believe that fully half of our conflicts right now could be prevented, or at the dead minimum, abated heavily if people were more candid about communicating their intent, their plan. Am I going to this event? Am I not going to this event? Maybe even going so far as to say why. There's definitely a judgment call to be had, and like I said, I'm not trying to solve all the world's problems, even within the SCA parameters only. But one of our great failings as humans is we at times can suck at communication. So really, my point here, if you have a question, it's a good idea to ask. If you have an idea, or if you're contributing to a larger project, as a general rule, when in doubt, over communicate. Go into too much detail. Don't assume that your idea is congruent with how someone else sees that same idea, and don't assume everyone knows the same things you do. And if you are collecting information, don't assume you can fill in someone else's blanks just because you have a lot of experience. If you're running a tournament and I know you're running the tournament, when I hear you say you're running a tournament, to me that means you have list heralds lined up, you have a list master lined up, you have a list field lined up, you know where it is, you know what's going on, and you can be reached 3, 4, or 5 days before the tournament with detail questions. That is what I think. When you say you're running the tournament, you're good to go, that is what I think. But I can't tell you how many times, oh boy, literally hundreds of times at this point, I have walked on to a main field at an event Saturday morning, and the individual running the tournament is still trying to find a list master and some heralds, 40 minutes before the tournament's supposed to start. And they're asking, hey, who has the list field that we use? That's a breakdown of communication. That's the type of thing that should be asked ahead of time. So, like I said, ask, communicate, talk. The world will frankly be a better place if we sit down and we talk more, if we share more information, if we foster an attitude and a spirit of communication within the SCA. So much more, in my opinion, will be better for it. So that's what I have. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, I'll see you at the next event. Goodbye, and God bless.